Religion really has had 2,000 years to prove itself as a reliable guide to human morality, and I think it's failed miserably. Humanity finds itself right now at a very important, critical point and fork in its evolutionary history. Down one path, we are leading to our accelerated extinction, and extinction is the norm.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed.
Genesis is another problem with religion and politics. Genesis is very explicit that the resources on the earth were put here for human exploitation. We are told to rule over the land and sea. We are not part of the environment. We are above and separate from the environment, which was put here for our benefit. That is why we pollute the air. That's why we're losing tropical forests by thousands of acres every day. It's because we don't appreciate the environment. We don't understand that we are part of the environment, that the environment is us. The religious perspective makes it seem like the environment is separate from us, and that leads us to exploit it non-sustainably. The losses that we saw in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina are just a glimpse of what we can expect to see in the future over the next 50 years. 300 million people live within 15 feet of sea level. 200 million are in Asia. 80% of those are in developing countries. Those countries do not have the resources to mitigate against those kind of catastrophic losses. I think that we can do better and that we should do better with the resources that we inherited from our ancestors. I'm a scientist by background, and with that training, I oversaw 3,000 projects in 80 countries. And what I saw from that position and from that perch was that there were real consequences of the policies that we implement in Washington, D.C., affecting the lives of millions of people. Beyond Cosmic Dice, Moral Life in a Random World is about morality without religion, going back to our basic humanity to create a new moral code. The scientific community believes unanimously, unambiguously, that climate change is real and is caused by human activity. There's no more debate about that, and any effort to introduce that into the debate is just a diversion from the truth. The United States used to be a beacon of hope for the world and a moral guidepost, and we've completely lost our moral ground. We torture people. We arrest people and suspend habeas corpus. We spy on our own citizens illegally. We ignore genocide in Darfur. We exploit the environment with wanton abandon. We lower our standards for polluting the environment. We ignore climate change. We ignore the destruction of tropical forests and the loss of critical habitat for biological diversity. We have truly lost our way. Well, there are a lot of sad things to discuss about Africa. We have genocide in Darfur, which the world is largely ignoring, with hundreds of thousands of people dying horrible deaths. In Zambia, 25% of the population, 1/4 of the entire population, is infected with HIV/AIDS. And that's interesting because there, the Bush administration, in cooperation with the Catholic Church, is preventing the distribution of condoms in Zambia. And condoms are the least expensive, most effective means of preventing AIDS. And yet, in a country where 1/4 of the population is infected, this administration and the Catholic Church are saying, you do not use the most effective means of preventing that disease. The average human condition in today's world is actually one of suffering. It's hard to realize when you're driving down the freeway, drinking your Coke, eating your Big Mac. There are lots of examples where good policies have really amazing effects on the quality of people's lives, but the inverse is true as well. Something like the Mexico City policy implemented in 1984 under Reagan wound up depriving millions and millions of women and children the rights to primary health care. In order to be effective, you have to cooperate with most of the countries in the world. And with climate change, it's particularly true, but there are some other big issues where that's important. There was an international meeting about the effects of climate change on polar life, including polar bears. The Fish and Wildlife Service scientists who were invited to that meeting were explicitly told not to discuss climate change, which is of course absurd because the whole purpose of the meeting was to discuss the potential impacts of climate change on polar life. What we've done is walk away from international treaties. We walked away from the Rio Treaty, in which the world decided they needed to protect natural habitats to preserve biological diversity. There are lots of examples where science discredits those beliefs long held in religion. I mean, look at Galileo. Galileo disproved that the earth was the center of the universe. I have no objection to spirituality. Spirituality is a person's inner perspective of how they interact with the world around them and the people that they interact with. And that's great. We all have our own internal interpretations of the world and those that we love. Religion is imposed on us externally, artificially from the outside with an arbitrary set of rules. And with those arbitrary set of rules, because it does not go to our inherent core humanity, that leaves us vulnerable to manipulation. And that is why we were burning people at the stakes during the Crusades, and probably why we invaded Iraq. I get the whiff of the Crusades in that war.